Hello, my name is Christian Maynard, a doctoral candidate at Washington State University in sociology. I study cannabis policy and adolescent use. Today, we will look at SAM, or Smart Approaches to Marijuana, an anti-cannabis group, and their response to President Trump's recent decision to issue an executive order telling the DOJ to reclassify cannabis as a Schedule III drug, completing the Biden rescheduling process. All right. We just got a few minutes. Oh.
Hello, everyone.
They didn't even let us get to 420. Darn.
I'm Kevin Sabet, President and CEO of SAM, Smart Approaches to Marijuana. Today, President Donald Trump announced he will allow marijuana's federal drug status under the Controlled Substances Act to be downgraded from Schedule I to Schedule III. This terrible move turns the clock for public health back decades, and it's our children who will pay the price.
Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what's going on. So, yes, Trump did sign an executive order to expedite the cannabis rescheduling. So he doesn't necessarily have the authority to reschedule it, but he has the authority to direct his agencies to allow the rescheduling process that was started under President Biden to continue and be finalized. Right now, it's been pending a court case. Order is essentially saying, void that court case, let it go through. So the executive order will direct the Attorney General, which is Pam Bondi, to expedite the completion of the rescheduling process. So instead of being Scheduled I, where it's considered to have no currently accepted medical uses, a Scheduled III substance has some uses, though it still has chances for or potential for dependency or abuse. Rescheduling to Schedule III would allow cannabis businesses to deduct expenses, similar to other businesses.
While this does not legalize marijuana, it does give rich marijuana companies tax breaks that will allow for further commercialization and thus further negative consequences for all of us. The president's call is clearly influenced by the addiction for profit industry. A lot of this effort was led by major marijuana companies in the space like Trulieve.
Let's bring out the actual executive order. So, whitehouse.com. Here's the executive order that was put out and some of the key things that I found interesting. So in it, they acknowledge, yes, the Biden, they don't acknowledge Biden, but they acknowledge that in 2023, HHS recommended and actually made a determination that medical cannabis has medically acceptable uses. And they do kind of bring up to the fact that it's been going through this process. Yes, there's been this proposed ruling, but the DEA's been holding it up. And it remarks on the 43,000 public comments, which primarily were in favor of legalization, or not legalization, but rescheduling. They're couching it as that the current landscape leaves American patients and doctors without adequate guidance for product safeguards or for CBD. This will increase medical marijuana and CBD research, which, yes, it will, hopefully, to better inform patients and doctors. So, like I said, this is going to be directed towards the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, to issue this order. And yeah, so that's enough of Trump's executive order.
It doesn't hurt that company and others have given tens of millions of dollars to the president and his campaign, or that the president's own staff has family and best friends who stand to benefit from this decision. Because Schedule III drugs are exempt from Section 280E of the tax code, marijuana companies can now deduct millions in expenses like rent, payroll, and crucially, advertising and marketing.
All right, well, let's talk about 280E. So what exactly is 280E? So 280E refers to businesses that deal with illegal substances. And this ruling has, which it's been, I believe, since the 80s, it looks like. Yeah, 82. This allows businesses to deduct business expenses for conducting their business. So right now, the effective tax rate that many cannabis businesses are paying is around 70%, whereas on regular businesses or any non-drug business, it's closer to 35%. So when Sabet mentions that this is going to allow businesses to deduct all these business expenses, yeah, it's going to make them on par with like regular businesses like alcohol or tobacco. In fact, at some points, dispensary owners have commented that this is the provision that hurts people when they attempt to legalize their business and come out of the shadows. Let's continue.
Payroll, and crucially, advertising and marketing. For years, 280E has limited the industry's ability to flood the zone with ads. Removing it now invites a surge of promotion that will normalize daily use, especially among young people. You can already feel the quality.
Okay, let's talk about this. It's not going to normalize use for young people. I think if that's going to happen, that's been out there at this point. Plus, even this normalization that has occurred in recent years, such as like through legalization, has been going on and use has not gone up. In fact, let me show you. So data from Monitoring the Future, which is a study of adolescent youth in the United States, a survey done at schools. I'll show you here. Monitoring the Future. They conducted a survey, and I've used their data in the past, but for past year cannabis use by 12th grade students, you can see that use has, remained stable, but if anything, since legalization around 2012, use has gone down among 12th grade students. And other research has indicated that it's gone down even more for younger adolescents. What about, okay, you say this is normalizing. Well, let's see how normalized it's been. This is the perceptions of risk. So this is how many adolescents say that it is a great risk to smoke cannabis regularly. As you can see, historically, it has been pretty high, but in recent years, especially with legalization, but even beforehand, views around its harmfulness has gone down. But use hasn't gone up. Let's look. As we saw, use has remained relatively stable, but perceived risk have gone down. And if anything, the availability of cannabis, like I were to make a huge claim off of this, but this is the adolescents who are saying, or the 12th grade students who are saying it's fairly or very easy to obtain cannabis. And, it hasn't really gone down since 2012. Much of this is likely the pandemic effect, but it's not ballooning. Anyways, let's continue.
Quality of life strain across our country as it is. Walk a busy corridor in virtually every major city, and the influence and the smell of marijuana is inescapable.
I'm not sure if the cannabis smell is the major thing that's making life harder on people. I would point out the rise of unaffordability in this country, personally.
Transit agencies field complaints about open use, and neighborhoods debate how to curb public smoking. The stench of marijuana will now proliferate further, as will its influence through advertising.
Here's an idea. If you don't want to have it being smelled in public, make spots, maybe consumption lounges, make spots where people can go consume their cannabis and then come back, walk around, be in public, whatever. If you make it where you're not allowed to consume it anywhere, well, you only got so many options.
Imagine that reality far more greater now, with a bigger retail footprint as companies write off costs and chase growth. That means more public use and more damage to our families who will be negotiating a culture that equates impairment with entertainment. And we can already imagine what the headlines will be. Marijuana downgraded, read by teens everywhere, giving them the impression that marijuana is completely legal and allowable. But rescheduling
just because they see that it's been downgraded, which they've been seeing that. I mean, legalization is in the majority of states now. Just because they're seeing that doesn't mean they are actually going to get access to it. And, in recent studies, as you legalize cannabis in those legal states, it seems like adolescents are finding it harder to get, especially once the market gets up and running. Adolescents can't go to a dispensary.
We won't allow that. And in many ways, this is actually nothing more than a Pyrrhic victory for big marijuana. They have paid an incredibly high price that we're confident will backfire. They have invested tens of millions of dollars in advertising, lobbying, influencer payments, legislation, ballot initiatives, all spent to legalize marijuana across the nation. This industry has been saying that we're on the verge of federal legalization since the 1970s.
I think that's a bit of a stretch, saying we're on the verge of federal legalization. I mean, they had an ally in Carter, but after that, you didn't really get a friendly cannabis executive president until Obama. Well, I guess Clinton, but maybe second half of Clinton.
And after decades of this empty rhetoric and millions flushed away, it's important to keep in mind that the drug remains fully federally illegal. And in many ways, Schedule 3 exposes them to an even wider array of risks and federal agency enforcement. Let's talk about what those risks really are. So Schedule 3 means that marijuana remains a federally controlled drug, illegal to sell outside FDA-regulated channels and without FDA approval. Rescheduling certainly does not give a green light to medical claims for state market THC.
This is something I am very curious at how this will transpire because, yes, Schedule 3 drugs are still sold behind pharmacies, which has a different standard than that of the medical dispensaries. So there will be some incompatibility with the current medical market at the state level and the approach that is Schedule 3 drugs.
Products. In many ways, it exposes them to further liability. For this industry, this is nothing more than a spectacular failure, a devastating blow to their goals. Consider this. Schedule 3 drugs face tough advertising standards around product labeling. Claims sellers are allowed.
The advertising standards are pretty restrictive now, being that it's a Schedule 1 drug. Just saying.
To make, and many other aspects of commerce. There is no reason to think marijuana will now suddenly be immune to this FDA scrutiny and enforcement. These rules also forbid sellers from citing off-label therapeutic use. And let's keep in mind there are exactly 0 FDA-approved uses for raw, crude marijuana.
I wonder why there is no FDA-allowed use of medical marijuana when Schedule 1 prevents much of the research from being done. And the research that has been done has traditionally not kept up with how the accurate market looks like.
Now, to be honest, it's not clear how this is all going to play out. This is an unprecedented decision because there is no other Schedule 3 drug with no FDA approval for use. In spite of this, we are prepared. In many ways, the debate's really just begun. So let me tell you what I can announce right now. As we speak, we are preparing to file suit against the administration to block this rule if it should ever be made final. We have retained Torridon Law and Bill Barr, former Attorney General of the United States, to lead this charge.
Hold up. What? Y'all got that Bill Barr? Man, you guys are shooting with 100% accuracy right now. Just saying.
Bill has assured me we have an excellent case. Now today, for the first time, I can also announce our multi-million-dollar led support for 2 grassroots campaigns to end marijuana sales and commercialization in Maine and Massachusetts. We still have the power to.
Let's take a look at Maine. There is a effort to gather enough signatures to repeal portions of the previous Legalization Act, which allowed for commercial cultivation, sale, purchase. You would still be allowed to possess cannabis, and there would be some changes to the medical program, but it is largely a restriction to the current program. And let's take a look at Massachusetts. Apparently they are also looking into gathering enough. There has been enough signatures collected, and this would in legal sales, put a potency limit, regulate the medical marijuana program, and criminalize the possession of more than 1 ounce. So, yeah, we got some developments going on.
Take back our public health. Well, we also are going to take the fight to big marijuana's bank account. That's thanks to the No Deductions for Marijuana Act introduced in Congress by House Budget Committee Chair Jody Arrington and Senator James Lankford.
So, the No Deductions for Marijuana Business Act. I looked at this. It's a very short. The main thing it does is it specifies that it specifies that marijuana, as it's defined, should still not get tax deductions. And it was introduced by James Lankford and Jody Arrington. Let's continue.
That law, when passed, will make sure marijuana never enjoys preferential tax treatment under Schedule 3. We're calling on Congress to pass this bill immediately. We also call on the Food and Drug Administration, the Federal Communications Commission, and the Federal Trade Commission to immediately begin monitoring the activities of big marijuana to ensure they are not in violation of the myriad new rules they are now subject to under Schedule 3. We're going to make sure and keep them accountable to this. We're also unveiling a number of new resources on our website, learnaboutsam.org, for federal policymakers as well as state-level leaders who will have questions about Schedule 3 impact. These resources will equip local advocates and the public with information they need to fight back through education, awareness, and activism. To find out more about what you can do to help in this crucial fight, check out our website, learnaboutsam.org. Now, the bottom line is that we at SAM are going to be working with you to keep fighting for healthy families and safe communities. The fight for public health is long, and we are prepared to weather the storm. We will never let the mantra of addiction for profit or the marijuana industrial complex take over our nation. We know you won't either, and we look forward to working with you. Thanks so much.
Okay, so in general, I am not surprised by the approach that Sam is taking here, or Kevin Sabet specifically, but I would like to point out that I don't think that the claims that he's making, especially around youth concerns, are very accurate. This normalization, I mean, it's rescheduling. It's not even legalization at the federal level or even decriminalization at the federal level. That's still, it's criminalized. And plus, like at the state level, most teens have, live in a medical or adult use states, and their use is not going up. If anything, it's going down. So yeah, if you would like to join me as we look at more cannabis-related content and provide an analysis to it, please comment, subscribe, and like the video for more. And if you're interested in supporting my work directly, you can look at my Patreon or just share the video. Thank you so much. Have a great day.